Pnawn da pawb. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Plaid Cymru's Shadow Cabinet in the National Assembly for Wales. Our health spokesperson for Health and Social Services is Ellen Jones, Assembly Member. Our spokesperson on Education and the Welsh Language is Simon Thomas, AM. Rhyn Apiorwerth is our spokesperson on the Economy and Transport. And Llyr is our spokesperson on, and if I get this right, Agriculture, Food, Energy and Rural Affairs. We've had a number of questions submitted for this session, and I thank all of you who did submit a question, but we have had a lot, and I don't think we're going to have sufficient time to get through them all. So if we don't get to your question, I'm going to apologise now in advance for that. The first question that I've got is for Simon Thomas. We are now in a state of permanent austerity. I'm looking the wrong way. Sorry. We're now in a state of permanent austerity. Will we ever see free higher education in Wales again?
It's a very good question that goes to the heart of how we can cope with a Welsh budget going forward. Let's be clear, Plaid Cymru's policy is still that tuition in higher education should be free at an undergraduate level. That has always been our policy, and we haven't changed that policy. But in doing a deal under One Wales, where we had to be in government and agree a budget, we did have to agree an alternative to that policy for at least this Assembly, which, as you know, is one that has given support to students domiciled in Wales wherever they study in the UK. And that is a significantly better offer than students get in England, certainly. But it is not the same as Scotland has been able to do with the financial settlement that they've got. So our number one case is for financial parity with Scotland, that £1.2 billion that we've been talking about, which is the difference between our settlement and the Scottish settlement. That would enable us to give a substantially better deal for students in Wales. But we can also do something, I think, alternative. And I want the party to seriously engage over the forthcoming months on whether we can do something better with the resources we do have and are now spending. At the moment, we give a flat line support no matter where people study. We do not favour Welsh institutions. We don't favour students who choose to study in Wales or who choose to do their research in Wales. And we don't favour students from poorer backgrounds who want to do the really important subjects that we need to see developed in Wales, whether it's women in STEM subjects or more Welsh speakers in medicine. We can do something better, I think, to target free tuition in that area if we do something about not giving the flat rate support for students who are studying English in Exeter rather than studying English in Aberystwyth. Our universities are suffering from a lack of investment. Even 4 years ago, there was a £65 million gap between investment in Welsh universities and English universities. That has grown as we've just given this flat rate, undiscretionary support for students no matter where they stand. And we see today, with struggling Aberystwyth, for example, in attracting students of all kinds, we see today that students we attracted to Welsh universities do not have the same level of quality as students go into English universities, that we are struggling to get that level, which then leads to research, which then boosts our economy and the sort of things that Rhyn would like to do in a Welsh economy. So yes, we can introduce some element of this, but it means a good, hard think about where the Welsh pound goes. And I think the Welsh pound for HE should be prioritised and favoritised for Welsh HE institutions and Welsh students studying in Wales. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer, Simon. The next question is for Ellen, and it is, are the problems with the ambulance service down to A&E departments being overstretched, or is there a fundamental problem with the ambulance service itself?
Wel, mae hynna'n gwestiwn amserol iawn. Ystadegau mwyaf diweddar dwi wedi weld ar berfformiad y gwasanaeth ambulans yn dangos fod 14,000 o alwadau mewn blwyddyn yn cymryd mwy nag 20 munud i gael ei ateb, ac mae hynna fyny 30% o'r un ffigurau y flwyddyn cyn hynny. Felly mae yna ddirywiad perfformiad sylweddol yn y gwasanaeth ambulans. Dyw hwnna ddim yn ddirywiad perfformiad o ran gwaith y paramedic sydd yn gweithio'n galetach na be maen nhw erioed wedi gorfod cael gweithio, ond mae yn yn dangos fod y systemau rheoli y gwasanaeth ambulans ar hyn o bryd ddim yn ddigon da i gynnal y gwasanaeth ambulans. Ond wrth gwrs mae'r cwestiwn wedi eirio mewn ffordd sydd yn amlygu rhan arall o'r equation hyn yw yr problemau yn yn ysbytau acute ni, oherwydd yn yr ysbytau hynny, mae yr unedau argyfwng yn llawnach na be maen nhw wedi bod erioed, ac mae'n anoddach i symud cleifion ymlaen o'r unedau argyfwng i'r wardiau, oherwydd fod y wardiau yn llawn. Nawr, y cwestiwn dwi'n meddwl, y cwestiwn creiddiol, a'r ateb creiddiol i hyn, mae'n ateb hir dymor. Dwi ddim yn rhywbeth all unrhyw weinidog wneud dros nos, ond y rheswm yn ysbytau ni a yn unedau argyfwng ni'n llawn a'n ambulances ni'n cymryd mor hir i gyrraedd y cleifion sy'n galw nhw yw fod y gwasanaethau integredig sydd yn ceisio cadw pobl yn y gymuned bellach yn rhy wan ac ddim wedi integreiddio digon trylwyr rhwng y gwasanaethau iechyd a'r gwasanaethau cymdeithasol, ac felly mae'r pecynnau gofal i ganiatáu pobl i gael ei ryddhau allan o'r ysbyty unwaith mae'r driniaeth drosodd nôl i'r gymuned. Mae'r pecynnau gofal hynny ddim yn ddigonol. Hefyd, mae'r gofal i sicrhau fod bobl yn enwedig yr henoed, ond ddim wastad dim ond yr henoed wrth gwrs, i sicrhau fod pobl ddim yn gorfod mewn i'r ysbyty yn y lle cyntaf. Mae angen sicrhau fod ni yn integreiddio'n gwasanaethau gofal a'n gwasanaethau iechyd llawer well yn y gymuned. Dyna pam Plaid Cymru yw'r unig blaid sydd o ddifri yn edrych nawr ar integreiddiad strwythurol llawn rhwng y gwasanaethau gofal a gwasanaethau iechyd, ac fe fydde hynna'n caniatáu wedyn i'r gwasanaeth yna yn y gymuned i fod y wasanaeth bwysica yn y gwasanaeth iechyd ni yn hytrach na'r dibyniaeth yma sydd gyda ni nawr ar or-ddibyniaeth ar y wasanaeth ambulans ar yr ysbytau acute. Mae eisiau shifto adnoddau a shifto pobl a staff allan o'r gwasanaethau acute ag mewn i'r gymuned. Ac unwaith newn ni hynny, fe newn ni leihau y pwysau dwys sydd yn gwasanaeth iechyd ni. Felly, nid mater o mwy o adnoddau yn unig yw hyn, mater o sut ych chi'n blaenoriaethu y defnydd o'r adnoddau hynny, ac mae ffordd gwell i'w wneud na'r hyn sy'n digwydd ar hyn o bryd.
Diolch, Helen. Next question is for Rhyn. What is Plaid Cymru's alternative to blowing $1 billion on the M4?
And don't say a third bridge.
Well, a third bridge. I think probably there are two ways of answering that. I'll maybe try to answer the two of them. First of all is the alternative to blowing £1 billion on a new M4 is to blow a third of £1 billion on a new M4, which would give us exactly the same result, deliver it quicker, and importantly, leave money to invest in the rest of infrastructure in Wales. And that's part two of the answer. I'll stick with part one for the time being. We're saying that we need to resolve the problem of the M4 in the southeast of Wales. The FSB, who we were on the stage with earlier, agree with us that it's a problem that needs resolving in order to help businesses in Wales, to help the Welsh economy grow. There's a real problem there that needs to be answered, and it needs to be answered quickly. We're not saying do it cheaply. We want to spend maybe £400 million on that stretch of road. So we're taking it very, very seriously indeed. But we know that there is a much better answer than to go for the black route, spending £1 billion on a 12-mile stretch of road. And it's not us, it's the FSB, it's the Institute of Directors, it's pretty much the whole of Wales, apart from two Conservative members, the First Minister. Some would argue the Transport Minister. I'm not entirely convinced that she wants the black route either, but that's another matter. What do we spend the £600 million on then that we could improve the rest of Wales's infrastructure with? Mi ddawn y syniadau o bob rhan o Gymru ar sut i wario'r arian yna. Yr un peth na I ddeud ydy ddylen ni ddim bod yn chwilio I wario'r arian yna I gyd, achos dwi wedi deud hynny mewn Cynhadledd Plaid Cymru o'r blaen. Pan da chi'n cael cerdyn credyd newydd, nid chwilio am sut I ddefnyddio'r arian I gyd ydych chi. Ond, lle mae yna gynlluniau y gallwn ni fod yn bwrw mlaen efo nhw, lles bob rhan o Gymru, mi ddylan ni fod yn chwilio am gyfleon I wario'r arian yna arno fo. Ac mi allan I enwi, dwi'n ni'n faint ohonyn nhw. Ydy ma pethau fel y trydydd bont dros y fennau yn un ohonyn nhw. Ond be am y cynlluniau pellach yna sy'n cysylltu de a gogledd? Y gwelliannau yna i'r A470 dim a ffyrdd eraill sy'n yn huno ni fel cenedl ac yn gallu creu economi Cymru gyfan. Beth am y gwelliannau yna mewn rheilffyrdd rhwng y de a'r gogledd? Beth am allu buddsoddi yn gyflymach mewn trydaneiddio ar draws y gogledd ac yn y blaen? Mae yna bob math o syniadau be da ni eisiau wedi cael y rhyddid I gael yr arian yna mwyn gallu chwilio am ffyrdd o greu strategaeth drafnidiaeth Cymru gyfan go iawn. A dyna mae'r llywodraeth yma yn ei fygwth drwy fynd yn gwbl un llygeiddiog lawr y llwybr di. Felly mae rhaid iddyn nhw stopio hwn, ac ar hyn o bryd, da ni ar targed, dwi'n gobeithio I drechu'r llywodraeth ar hyn.
Diolch.
Ga I jyst ychwanegu un pwynt I pwynt fi. Be newch chi hefyd o llywodraeth sydd yn penderfynu y sailwaith buddsoddi cyfalaf a beth mae trysolus yn Llundain yn gwaed wrthyn nhw yw benthyciadau yn atod yn beth yw anghenion ni.
A be newch chi hefyd o lywodraeth sydd yn cyflwyno deddfwriaeth I osod datblygu cynaladwy yng Nghalon y modd yma'r sector gyhoeddus yng Nghymru'n gweithredu, ac sydd yn datblygu cynllun fel achos y llwybr D o safbwynt yr M4 sydd yn mynd I greu dinistyr amgylcheddol difrifol, un o safleoedd mwyaf pwysig amgylcheddol sydd ganddo ni yng Nghymru, sef y gwastadeddau yng Ngwent. Nawr, chi'n modd, y triple bottom line pan mae'n dod I ddatblygu cynaladwy yw'r economaidd, wrth gwrs, yr amgylcheddol a'r cymdeithasol. Wel, yn ôl y ffon fesur yna, mae'r llwybr D yn methu ar y 3 chyfri, a mae yna opsiwn amgen, a dyna sy'n gwneud i'n gwbl anodd I ni dderbyn bod y llywodraeth yn gwneud y penderfyniad iawn.
And another thing. Mi allan ni fynd ymlaen, a hynny di, mae yna gymaint o ddadleuon yn erbyn hyn. Da ni'n sôn am allu buddsoddi peth o'r 600 miliwn y bunna wedi arbed ar system metro eang ar draws de-ddwyrain Cymru. Da ni'n cytuno bod ni angen hynny fel cenedl ar gyfer datblygu y gornel yna o Gymru. Be di'r pwrpas bwrw mlaen efo hwnnw tra ar yr un pryd yn adeiladu capacity trafferth ar gyfer ceir, da ni'n bwriadu tynnu oddi ar y ffordd. Does na ddim synwyr yn y peth.
I think you probably picked up that we feel quite strongly about this issue. The next question is for Llyr. What does the former Agricultural Minister's comments about a dependency culture within the farming industry mean?
Well, that's something I've been asking myself. I ask that to myself every time he speaks, actually, but there we are. No. Well, it was quite an interesting intervention by him, the former Minister, of course, Alan Davies, in the Assembly this week. We had a Plaid Cymru debate on agriculture, and it's been described as an outburst. You know, I mean, it was really sort of getting a lot of his chest, I think, in some respects. But to suggest, you know, that it's the fault of the farming industry in Wales that they're reliant on public subsidy, I think, misses the point and is quite startling, I think, from somebody who, until very recently, held that portfolio. We know that there are serious deficiencies in the markets as they stand when it comes to food. We know that. But we also know that we need safe and secure sources of food. And that means when 80% of your farming industry is not viable without public subsidy, then there has to be a means where you make up for those deficiencies in the market. Allwch chi ddim cael sefyllfa, os ydy bobl eisiau ffynhonnell diogel o fwyd, lle mae'r ffynhonnell honno o dan fygythiad. Nawr, wrth gwrs, mi welon ni yn y trafodaethau o gwmpas y polisi amaeth cyffredin sydd wedi ac yn cael ei ddiwygio ac yn cael ei gyflwyno ar ei newyddwedd yng Nghymru. Benderfyniadau yn cael ei gwneud yn erbyn buddiannau ffermwyr Cymru. Yn y lle cyntaf, wrth gwrs, mi dorwyd holl gyllideb y polisi amaeth cyffredin ar draws Ewrop. Plaid Cymru a Jill Evans yn sefyll yn gryf yn erbyn hynny oherwydd mi bydde fe yn gwneud niwed i'n diwydiant ni yma yng Nghymru. Llafur y ceidwadwyr a'r pleidiau eraill yn pleidleisio o blaid y toriad. Y pres yn dod, Llywodraeth Lafur wedyn yn penderfynu cymryd 15% yn ychwanegol allan o'r arian oedd yn mynd i ffermwyr Cymru. 286 o filiynau o bunnau yn cael ei gymeryd allan o bocedi ffermwyr Cymru. Pres byddai'n cael ei wario gan y ffermwyr hynny yn cyflogi pobl ar y ffarm, yn talu am gontractwyr, yn prynu nwyddau lleol, yn y siopau lleol, y tafarndai lleol, y garages lleol, yr arian yna'n cael ei signo allan o economi wledig Cymru. Mi drosglwyddwyd yr arian fewn i'r raglen, a fydd, medde'r Llywodraeth yn dod nôl i'r ffermwyr yn y pen draw. Mae'r jiwri allan ynglyn â hynny, ac yn sicr fydd e ddim yn dod nôl yn yr un ffordd. Ond mae Cymru bellach wedi mynd o fod yn un o'r gwledydd gyda'r lefel isa o drosglwyddiad, y 15% mae'n mynd allan, yn Ewrop, i fod yn un o'r rai ucha. A pan da ni'n sôn am bolisi amaeth cyffredin, lle i ni fod trio sicrhau bod yna gystadlu ar lefel 10 yn digwydd o fewn y farchnad fwyd, yna mae ffermwyr Cymru yn dweud thai, mae gelyn penna nhw yn hynny o beth yw i llywodraeth nhw i hunain. Mae Plaid Cymru wedi bod yn glir fysen ni ddim wedi trosglwyddo y 15%, a mae yna gyfle i adolygu hynny hanner ffordd drwy raglen. Gewch chi godi'r canran os ych chi eisiau, gewch chi'n dynnu lawr, felly mae Cymru yn styc gyda'r lefel ucha o drosglwyddiad. Dwi wedi bod yn cwrdd â ffermwyr yn gyson, a maen nhw'n dweud wrtha i bod hwn yn mynd i fod yn ergyd mawr, yn enwedig y ffermwyr hynny sydd yn ffermio ar y tiroedd ucha, yn yr holl tiroedd, sydd yn mynd i weld miloedd o bunnau yn cael eu colli dros nos bron iawn, ac wrth gwrs yn gweld ffermwyr mewn rhan eraill o Gymru, mewn rhai achosion, ac yn sicr dros y ffin yn cael gwell gefnogaeth o lawer. Felly, mae yna gwestiynau mawr, oes, ynglyn â strwythyr y farchnad fwyd, a'r modd y mae'r diwydiant yn gweithio. Ond mae'r gweinidog amaeth neu'r cyn-gweinidog amaeth trio beio diwydiant ei hunan am fethiannau gwleidyddol ac economaidd, dwi'n meddwl, yn gwbl anheg ac yn sarhaus.
Diolch. The next question isn't policy specific, it's a general question which I'll answer. And the question is, I'm strange asking myself a question.
It's like somebody else to read it for you.
What does the Shadow Cabinet doing to broaden the party's appeal to people in South and North East Wales is the question. And in answering that, I would say that before you have a team of people that reflects all parts and all aspects of Wales, if you like. And we are determined to put forward policies that are relevant to people, relevant to their concerns in their communities. And one of the biggest things that come to us as concerns from people that are obviously, people have a range of worries, but they can all be brought back down to the cuts and the austerity programme put forward by the Westminster Government. So we have to make sure that we have a story, a compelling story, to tell people around the alternative to that agenda. And I hope that in my speech yesterday, I started sketching out some of those ideas. And of course, the key to this is ensuring that Wales gets a better financial deal, because if we were to have the same level of funding per head as people in Scotland, then there would be an additional £1.2 billion for our public services. So that is a campaign that we need to make sure everybody understands Plaid Cymru is fighting for. And I don't need to explain to you the challenge that we face in getting our message across in the media. It's a big challenge for us. So therefore, we understand that we've got to go and take that message to people directly on the doorstep. We do a lot through social media, but this is where you all come in as members of the party. We can't do the job that we do alone. We need the support of you underneath that, holding us up, if you like, and making sure that people understand what we are saying. And we have shown, whether it's in Caerphilly or Ynys Môn, when we put our effort in at that ground level, we can achieve remarkable results. And I'm asking you to help us do that again. Let's do what we did in Ynys Môn when we ensured the election of Rhyn ap Iorwerth. Let's do that all over Wales. It's up to us. That future's in our hands. Okay. I'll go back to Simon now. And the question is, what examples are there of the red tape Plaid Cymru would cut for teachers?
Diolch. Dwi ddim yn mynd i festri nhw i gyd, dwi ddim yn meddwl, achos mae'r... Ond, nath ni ddweud hwn gyntaf, wrth gwrs, yn cynhadledd Wanwyn, a byddwn ni'n edrych ar sut mae'n wneud hwn. Achos, na i roi stori i chi sy'n esbonio pam ges i'n sbardino i dechrau meddwl yn termau hyn, achos nathon chi cadarnhau hwn yn yr afaith ddoi hefyd. Fe sy'n amweliad ar ysgol, na i ddim enwi'r ysgol yn De Cymru, ac y pwrpas o'r ymweliad oedd yn edrych a beth oedd yr ysgol yn wneud o fan arferion dysgu a grant ymddifadau ddisgyblion ac ati i helpu disgyblion o'r cefndifoedd mwy o difreintiedig i cau y bwlch o fan cyfeiriad ar ysgol. Ac gofynes i prifathro yn yr ysgol hwnna, beth oedd y canllaw gan y Llywodraeth mwy o defnyddiol oedden nhw'n ffindo i helpu nhw yn y broses yma. A gofynes i'r cwestiwn iddi hi, achos o'n i'n meddwl bydde hi'n dod nôl gyda rhywbeth fel faioni sydd yn athrawon, yma Sutton Trust Toolkit, neu rhyw geiriau fel yna, ti'n bod. A wedi fod yn gwbl onest i chi, 10 mlynedd yn ôl, cyhoeddodd y Llywodraeth Cymru canllawiau ar gyfer grant effeithlonrwydd ysgol, a wi dal i defnyddio hwnna. Wel, ers hwnna 10 mlynedd yn ôl, fyddwch chi'n gwybod faint o cyhoeddiadau, arfer da, canllawiau, cyfywyddiadau, targedau, pob math o haenen wedi cyhoeddi gan Llywodraeth Cymru, i gyd wedi anelu at cau y bwlch yma. Nawr, fel wedys i bore yma yn yr afaith ynglyn â'r cynnig, dyw hwnna ddim wedi gweithio. Ac dyma'r prifathro Wes, mewn ysgol lwyddiannus, oedd yn llwyddo i wneud hwn, yn gwaed i pob pwrpas, mae cyfan oll wedi bod yn ofer, dwi'n defnyddio rhywbeth oedd yn 10 mlynedd oed, ond sy'n dal yn gwbl berthnasol i fi, achos dyna beth oedd yr arfer gofer ar y pryd. Ac wy'n credu ar sail hynny, dechreuais i meddwl, wel sut felly gallwn ni wneud yn siŵr bod ni'n grymuso prifathrawon i defnyddio'r arfer da yna, heb roi baich yn nhw, i fod yn adrodd yn ôl do fol to, a pob ceiniog a pob dan ar arian oedd nhw'n cael gan Llywodraeth. A pan edrychus i mewn i'r peth, mae yna o leia 17 gwahanol grant sy'n mynd yn uniongyrchol i ysgolion ar gyfer gwahanol pethau sy'n gallu digwydd tu fewn i'r ysgolion yna, na pan wi ddim yn mynd i enwi nhw. Ac wneud hwn a gwaed hwn, yn sydyn iawn, yn y gyllideb drafft eleni, mae Gweinidog Addysg wedi gwaed wi'n mynd i peidio cael 17 yn sydyn iawn, wi'n mynd i gael 4. Felly ni wedi cael ei ryw effaith eisoes ar y broses yma. Ond dwi eisiau mynd ymhellach, achos dwi eisiau nid yn unig yn streamlinio, os liciwch chi, y grantiau hynny, dwi hefyd eisiau edrych a sut yn gallu cynnig cymorth gweinyddol i mewn i'r ysgolion, achos dyn ni angen wybodaeth, wrth gwrs, dyn ni angen gallu dilyn y disgyblion fel sy'n cael ei wneud yn drwyadl iawn yn Ceredigion, y system addysg ofer sydd gyda ni yng Nghymru yn cael ei redeg gan Plaid Cymru. Fyna mae pob un, rhowch clap i Elna Gwyn, a system addysg yng Ceredigion, fyna maen nhw'n dilyn pob plentyn. Maen nhw'n gwybod yn union ble mae pob plentyn a pob un o'r ffactorfa. Os liciwch chi, mae hwnna'n fywacrataidd, ond mae'n talu ar ei ganfed achos dyna'r unig tŵl. Na un tŵl mawr maen nhw angen ac i defnyddio. Dwi eisiau cymorth, felly, dodi cymorth mewn i ysgolion a fan gweinyddol i helpu prifathrawon fyna, achos yn y bôn ac yn y pen draw, be dyn ni eisiau gweld yw bod athrawon ni yn cael ei gwobwyo o fan pach yn y gymuned ac o fan tal y cyflog am bod yn addysgwyr rhagofol a ddim yn cael ei gwobwyo am fod yn bureaucrats. Good.
Elin, how realistic would it be for Plaid Cymru to merge health and social care within one assembly term?
Well, I'd have to start at day one on that one. That is a huge piece of work. I've already alluded in my earlier answer to why it's so necessary now to look at the full integration, structural integration of health and social care. Now, one of the great weaknesses of the review on public services undertaken by the Williams Commission was that it did not look fully at including possibly the biggest public service of all, the health sector, as part of realigning public services in Wales. And if you keep the NHS completely separate from everything, then that does not allow for appropriate integration of services. So we need now to lead the debate, as we are doing, and we are looking at options on how you ensure that integration of health and social care. You can go down at least 2 routes, and there are probably more. The easiest one probably to accomplish, and I said this yesterday, so I apologize if some of you are hearing it for the second time, but as politicians, we were told to repeat the message. So I'll do that again. The easiest route is to transfer social care, adult social care from local authorities into the NHS and local health boards. Look at democratising and making the local health boards accountable locally if you chose that route. That is probably the easiest to achieve and would certainly be achievable within a 5-year period of Plaid Cymru government. The more challenging one is the more radical one, which is to look at creating new community primary and community hospital services, and that would be under the overall structure of local government. Possibly that local government would be a bigger authorities that could take that on, and you would have then all of community services, including GP services, within the local integrated structure. And then, of course, you wouldn't need 7 health boards then to be responsible for the acute, only the acute and regional hospitals in Wales, and you could scrap the local health boards entirely and create a national body responsible for acute and specialist hospitals, to free them up to focus on the acute care that's so necessary and the specialist care that we also want to see in Wales, which is a modernised, cutting-edge service that allows us to be looking after our people with the most recent of technologies and treatments. And we could do that at a national level. We need to plan nationally for our health service. For too long, Welsh Government ministers have said, well, it's a matter for the local health board. Leave it to the local health board. We hear it time and time again as elected politicians from Welsh ministers. I think Welsh ministers, and me as a Welsh health minister, would want to be directly accountable to the people of Wales and take the responsibility of running the NHS seriously. That doesn't mean by creating a national framework for our hospitals that service isn't delivered locally. The acute hospitals and the community services need to be delivered locally, but they need to be accountable nationally. We do not need, I am not persuaded that we any longer need 7 local health boards in Wales. And just to answer the question, yes, I would do both options within 5 years of government. But I'd have to start on day 1.
Plaid Cymru politicians, answer the questions. Okay, the next question is a more general one, and it's up to all of you if you want to chip in on this. How can we make sure that we squeeze more out of the money spent by public services in Wales?
I'm happy to take that if that's... It's one of the things that came out of the Sustainable Communities Commission work that was published earlier this year, actually. One of the things that we're emphasising in that report is that we really do need to accelerate this shift towards more preventative spend, so that we actually invest up front in preventing problems down the line, which eventually, of course, would save then money when it comes to delivering some of those public services. Now, I was told today, actually, that the average cost of an ambulance call-out is £1,800. I'm looking to Ellen, I don't know if that's true or not, but, you know, it's quite a substantial sum. And I was also told that it would only cost on average £1,100 to actually adapt a house to make it easier for people with certain needs, you know, elderly people, etc., fitting handrails, widening the doors, those kinds of things, so that you actually invest up front to avoid a situation where maybe somebody falls and needs to call out an ambulance. You know, if you have a broken hip, apparently it'll on average cost the NHS £28,000. So that's the kind of shift, I think, in thinking that we need around the whole culture of spending our public money. We shouldn't be afraid of investing more up front, because, of course, we can then be confident in the right places that delivers savings down the line. And one of the other recommendations out of the Sustainable Communities Commission's report was that we actually create a strategic integration unit within Welsh Government, at the heart of Welsh Government, driving agendas such as this, because you mentioned the need to integrate health and social care, of course, but we need to take a much more strategic look around some of the fundamental challenges that are facing Wales. You know, the demographic challenge, the population getting older is something that needs to be reflected more effectively, I think, in the way that we plan our services. Likewise, climate change, of course, we need to hardwire that resilience into public service infrastructure. So there's plenty, I think, that we can do. But what we're seeing, of course, from the Welsh Government, when they introduce the planning bill, as they have done, is a suggestion that they will withdraw the need for design and access statements around new houses, which, of course, would make the situation worse. So, you know, there's a big job to be done, but it's about that initial investment so that it saves money down the line.
Yep. Na I newid cyfeiriad yn llwyr a sôn o bosib am sut ydyn ni'n gwario arian cyhoeddus yng Nghymru ar nwydda a gwasanaethau. Mae rhyw 4 biliwn o bunnau yn flynyddol yn cael ei wario, os liciwch chi, gan Lywodraeth yn uniongyrchol a Llywodraeth leol yng Nghymru a chyrff cyhoeddus eraill ar nwydda a gwasanaethau. Yn anffodus, mae llawer gormod o'r arian hwnnw yn cael llifo allan o Gymru. Mae yna enghreifftiau da iawn yng Nghymru o lle mae ambell i gorff wedi gosod nod iddyn nhw hunain o gynyddu faint o arian sy'n cael ei wario o fewn i hardal eu hunain. Mae Cyngor Gwynedd, Cyngor Plaid Cymru, wrth gwrs, wedi bod yn llwyddiannus iawn. Mae yna gyngor eraill sydd ddim yn wylo Plaid Cymru. Sir Benfro, er enghraifft, wedi bod yn llwyddiannus iawn yn cynyddu faint o ganran o'i holl wariant nhw sy'n cael ei roi i gwmnïau lleol. Mae yna gwpl o enghreifftiau yn yn etholaeth i. Mae gen i gywilydd ohonyn nhw mewn difri. Pan nath Cyngor Môn roedd i contract cinio ysgol allan, gwerth 1.2 miliwn o bunnau, mi gafodd ei hwnnw'r tro diwethaf i roi i gwmni o Reading. Nid yn unig oedd y cytundeb hwnnw'n mynd i gwmni o Reading, ond un o amoda'r cytundeb hwnnw oedd bod 30% o y cynnyrch oedd yn cael ei ddefnyddio gan y cwmni i'r fwydo plant ysgol Ynys Môn yn dod o Gymru. Dim ond 30%. Ylwch ar yr arian sy'n llifo allan, nid yn unig o Ynys Môn ond o Gymru yn yr achos yna. Cymharwch hynny efo Gwynedd, lle mae'r gyllideb fymryn yn fwy oherwydd maint y sir, yw 1.7 miliwn y bunnau, dwi'n meddwl. Mae'r arian hwnnw i gyd yn cael ei wario o fewn Gwynedd neu Ogledd Cymru ddydwn ni. Dydyn ni ddim yn sôn am wario ceiniog yn fwy hyd yn oed. Felly ar adeg o lymder ariannol, lle mae cyllidebau yn cael ei torri, mae yna angen difrifol i wneud yn siŵr bod yr arian sy'n ganddo ni'n cael ei wario'n gall, a pha well ffordd na sicrhau cytundebau lleol i gwmnïau a gweithwyr lleol. Mae hynny'n rhywbeth, mae dim ond uchelgais a brwdfrydedd dros y syniad sydd ei angen. Mae yna eiriau gwag gen y Llywodraeth, ond dim gweithredu o gwbl. Enghraifft arall yn Ynys Môn, cytundebau torri glaswell ysgolion yn Ynys Môn. Da chi wedi clywed am hyn yn y gorffennol. Cwmni o Ogledd Orllewin Lloegr yn torri glaswell ysgolion yn Ynys Môn, pan mae yna fwy o tractors per head of the population yn Ynys Môn, nag yn unrhyw le arall fyddwn ni'n tybio. Hynny ydy, dydy o'n gwneud dim synwyr. Mae yna reswm pan bod nhw'n neud o. Mae'n llawer haws roedd un cytundeb mawr i un cwmni mawr o ffwrdd. Yn cymryd chydig bach mwy o waith i dorri cytundebau i fyny er enghraifft, mwyn sicrhau bod cwmnïau llai lleol yn gallu brwydro amdanyn nhw. Ond fel dwi'n deud, y cwbl sydd ei angen ydy'r ewyllus gwleidyddol am yr ewyllus hwnnw gen Plaid Cymru.
I just want to follow on from Llyr's initial comments on the importance of preventative spend in order to avoid elderly, frail people quite often having to go into acute hospital by an A&E call, and the spend that follows that, so that more effort is put into the preventative side. That doesn't always have to be delivered by the public sector, local government or NHS, of course, and I think that there are really interesting models of care domiciliary care provided by the cooperative model, and I've been looking in particular at the model that's been developed in Quebec, where they provided a statutory basis for the introduction of elderly care cooperatives right throughout Quebec, and I think that Plaid Cymru could well look to provide legislation to make that a possibility in Wales, because we have, of course, the third sector working in different ways in different places in Wales. So we have something to build on already with care and repair and the third sector work, but I think we can move that on a step further now by formalising it into a cooperative structure that we could follow Quebec's lead on, because their work there has certainly had the result that I've been speaking about all day, all throughout the conference, of preventing people from having to access acute care by caring for them better in the community. And there are models to enable us to do that better, and we need to lead that debate in Wales.
And I'm sure that all of you who knock doors and speak to people regularly will be aware of the concerns that people have about long-term care and the pressures that are on the system. So the fact that we're thinking about this is a longer-term thing to be thinking about, but it demonstrates that we do have the ability to think long-term about these serious problems that people are facing in Wales. Simon, you wanted to say something on this?
Yeah, a final point perhaps on this. I hope that any Plaid Cymru minister does take two things extremely seriously. One is the preventative agenda that's just been mentioned, but it's not just in health. It's also, for example, in education, where the evidence internationally and from Scotland as well is very clear that early years intervention... Yeah, it is international, yeah. When it's almost, they should be international.
Yeah, it
should be much more international.
45%.
Yeah, it's 45% there, yes. The evidence is very clear that that early years intervention makes a huge difference to children's outcomes and learning, and it carries right through your life. It's there at the end of your life. You can see the difference. You can measure it. York University, which isn't in Scotland and still international, York University has been able to account for it in the difference between NEETs and non-NEETs, which can apply to Wales, which is about £56,000 of public money that is saved just by doing some early years intervention. There's very clear evidence of that. So I hope that any Plaid Cymru minister would apply that to his or her portfolio in a genuine way, but I also hope we do something else. I hope we admit when we got it wrong. And I hope when we evaluate our schemes and when we get evidence that what we put in money in isn't working in the way we expect it to work, that we will be honest with people, we will say that that's not happening, and we will make the necessary adjustments. I'll give one example, which again I did mention this morning, but there's definitely more people here this afternoon, so that's good. Flying Start, big early years intervention, anti-poverty initiative, done by Welsh Government, which we have supported in principle because, as I say, it's an initiative and international comparisons bear it out well. But the evaluation of Flying Start, an £84 million a year programme by Welsh Government, has said very clearly that it is bringing no benefit whatsoever to the people in the Flying Start areas. Now, what do you do if you're spending £84 million a year to tackle poverty and the most troubled families in Wales and it's not working? Do you, A, carry on exactly as you're going and say that anyone who criticises you is talking through their... Or, hat, that's the word I was looking for. I knew it was 3 letters. In Welsh, anyway. Or do you say, we've got it a bit wrong, we will now relook at this programme, we still believe that early years intervention is important because we do have that international evidence, but clearly we're not getting it right, so we need to rethink, and we will do that in public, in a public forum. Which do you think the ministers and deputy ministers of Welsh Labour Government have decided to do? I hope that Welsh Plaid Cymru ministers will be much more braver, honest, and more truthful about these things, and things that are working and the things that are not working with public money.
I just think one thing that I'd like to add into this debate as well is that in Scotland they work on the basis of zero budgeting, which means that every year, rather than going to ministers and saying, oh, this is what you had last year, we're going to give you a top-up, they start from zero and you have to justify as a minister the money that you spend. And I think that John Swinney introduced that system as a minister, and I think it's something that we should be looking to do in Wales as well, because that means every single penny has to be accounted for and justified. And I think that's something that we can do as well. Right, I'm going to just finish on a quick question, because our time is up, and it's a question for myself again. Now that the party has called for funding parity with Scotland, what are the next steps in actioning this? Well, those of you who heard what I had to say yesterday will know that next May we could see a hung parliament, and in that scenario, Plaid Cymru, together with our colleagues in the SNP and the Greens, could be a significant we could be in a very significant place in terms of holding the balance of power. If we are in that position, we will do everything that we can to rebalance power in these islands, and that includes the rebalancing of financial power as well. And you may have seen a very talented new candidate that we have speaking this morning, Shelley Rhys-Owen from the Rhondda. I'm going to give her a plug because I've got an interest in doing that. But Shelley, in her presentation this morning, outlined the campaign that she's going to be running in the general election, her campaign for financial justice. And I would ask all of you, if you liked what you heard from Shelley this morning, you can share we're happy to share the information from the campaign with you so that you too can take Shelley's campaign, not just in the Rhondda, we can take it right throughout all of our communities in Wales. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you all for listening. I hope that we've been able to demonstrate this afternoon that Plaid Cymru has got a strong leadership team in place. We've got talent, we've got a wide policy platform, it's well researched, it's well evidenced. You have heard our messages now, and now we need you to help us make sure that everybody else in Wales knows exactly what we're saying. Diolch yn fawr iawn.